UK's new finance minister says he'll reverse almost all the tax cuts announced by his predecessor 3 weeks ago. Jeremy Hunt has revealed tax and spending measures 2 weeks earlier than planned. He only landed the role on Friday and has promised to fix public finances after his predecessor's economic plan sparked panic on the markets. Kwasi Kwarteng was sacked by Prime Minister Liz Truss after his mini-budget caused the pound to sink to a record low and sent the cost of government borrowing soaring. The crisis has severely damaged the credibility of the Prime Minister 6 weeks into the job. Well, let's cross over to London and join our ICE correspondent Laurie Laird, who's been following the fast-moving events. Good to see you, Laurie. So the new Chancellor Jeremy Hunt and the embattled Prime Minister Liz Truss bringing forward the government's spending and taxation statement by a fortnight to today. The Prime Minister, of course, fighting for her political life. How much does that show how deep this crisis is?
It's difficult to overstate how deep this crisis is, Charles, and all of us in the UK who have covered UK politics for decades have been talking about how we have never seen anything like this. But let's back up a moment, because you talked about bringing forward that statement that was meant to happen on the 31st of October. That's still going to happen. But not only was that was a statement brought forward to today, it was brought forward even twice today. It was decided early on or late last night that Jeremy Hunt, the new guy, would make a statement to the Commons this afternoon. But the government decided to bring that statement forward. They had him address the press at 11 o'clock this morning, or it was a pre-recorded statement. But even so, the government let it be known between 6 and 7 this morning that there would be a statement coming from the new chancellor. That is how important the government felt like it was to get the message out. And I think the reason for that is that because the Bank of England, which has been supporting the bond market for the past couple of weeks, ended that support on Friday. And I think the government was finally aware that markets are important and that they had to let the markets know that something was afoot, something supportive was afoot from the government, not just from the central bank.
And Laurie, are we seeing more positive reaction from the markets to what the government are saying? I mean, the value of the pound, I understand, went up.
The pound has soared up about 2% today, and the pound is now higher than it was before the 23rd of September when we saw that mini budget by former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. Funny that we're calling it a mini budget. The effect of that fiscal document is anything but mini. We've also seen a rally in gilts, that is UK government bonds. When the price of a government bond comes up, the yield goes down, and the yield is the important thing for the government. The yield is essentially what the government pays to borrow. Yield came down quite a bit today, about half a percentage point, now yielding about, let me just look down for a second, now yielding 436. That is what the government has to pay to borrow. But you have to remember that when I talk about that yield, that's on a 30-year borrowing program. We're still about half a percentage point on that 30-year borrowing, half a percentage point above where we were on the 22nd of September. So yields have come down a lot, but they're still significantly higher than where they were before the mini budget.
And of course, beyond the economic consequences of all of this, there's the political. I mean, reading the British papers and listening to the pundits, you'd think that the game for Miss Truss is up. I mean, given that her authority appears to be shot and her leadership is apparently in tatters, the question is, I mean, how much longer do you think she's got in the job? Will it be days, weeks, or months?
The betting right now is days, and we'll get to that in a second. But one of the things that is extraordinary is a couple of days ago, Jeremy Hunt was forced to say on television that the prime minister is still in charge. I think that's one of the things that if the prime minister has authority, you don't need to say to a television camera. So when you say the prime minister is in charge, I think the immediate thought is, really? Is she? But that intensity or that intense speculation about Liz Truss's future even got worse within the past hour or so. We saw Jeremy Hunt in Parliament talking about the reverse on the tax cuts that had been announced by Kwasi Kwarteng on the 23rd. He defended himself pretty well, but prior to that was a special session of questions that was requested by the opposition leader, Keir Starmer. Now, Liz Truss didn't manage to make it to that. She sent the chief whip, Penny Mordaunt, who was a former challenger for the role of prime minister. Penny Mordaunt was asked over and over, there's Penny Mordaunt right now, asked over and over, where was the prime minister? Which is not an unfair question. All that Penny Mordaunt could say was, she is on parliamentary business. If I could tell you where she is, I would. It's emerged within the past hour or so, Charles, that she was meeting with a man called Sir Graham Brady. Sir Graham Brady is a backbencher. That it means he doesn't have a ministerial spot, and he is head of an umbrella group of non-ministerial Conservative Party members. Now, the reason that he is very important is he is the arbiter of the rules on how to choose a party leader. The fact that Liz Truss was meeting with him during crucial parliamentary questions today has only raised more questions about her future.
Absolutely extraordinary developments, Laurie. And is all this showing that it takes years to establish a country's trust and credibility on the global stage, but you can lose it very quickly and it's much harder to regain it?
Absolutely. The credibility of this particular government has gone in under 6 weeks. I think it's stunning. We don't tend to see this sort of thing. I think the populace is waiting for Liz Truss to go, whether she hangs on for a while or not. But I think she is viewed as somebody who will not be in office very long, certainly not in power at all. The next question would be how to affect a rather seamless or as frictionless as possible transition to another leader. The rules as they are set up bar the party from putting out a confidence or a no confidence vote against Truss for a year. Those rules can be changed by the gentleman of whom we were just speaking, Graham Brady. But I think the difficulty will be putting the country through another drawn out election process for a party leader. And in the case of the Conservatives, the party leader becomes prime minister. If the Conservatives can unite around a consensus candidate, avoid that need for a drawn-out process, I think if that can happen, that will keep Liz Truss's days in office even shorter than they appear to be now. But I think that is probably the clog right now, the sticking point right now, is how to replace her without breaking up this party, fracturing this party even further.
And of course also who might replace her. Laurie, thank you very much indeed for that analysis. Laurie Laird, Arise correspondent, talking to me from London.